Hoyt Grayson, the intrepid host of A&E's In Search of Monsters, had never actually found anything larger than a catfish in 88 episodes. But he played the part well enough for the cameras to keep the show running. His eccentric attitude and pseudoscience mumbo-jumbo fit in well with the late-night stories about aliens and the ghosts. We left the office as Greg made the necessary phone calls to get manpower on the water. The sheriff's office deployed both sea hunters, each manned with 5 deputies from the Marine unit. We left the marina at 7 p.m. Greg and I were on board one of the sea hunters. I found myself suddenly uncomfortable being back on board a boat, knowing what lurked below us. The sea hunter cut through the water with ease as we passed through the shallows. We passed the wreck of the Carmanos, and my uneasiness grew. Both boats made their way towards Blackwater Cove. As we made our approach, I scanned the surface with my binoculars. I could make out 4 boats near the mouth of the cove, spread out at equidistant intervals. 3 boats were roughly 25 feet in length, but one was much larger than the others. They all were shark white with ISOM painted on the hull for In Search of Monsters. The A&E logo was stitched into a flag which fluttered at the end of each boat. A tall, tanned man in sleeveless khaki button-down shirt, khaki shorts, and a large cowboy hat was standing on the bow of the largest boat, labeled ISOM 1. He was talking animatedly to a camera crew as they filmed his every word. Hoyt Grayson. "Look at this jackass," Greg muttered. We watched as the crew of the other boats began prepping massive nets, which they stretched out onto small cranes on the deck of each boat and attached weights to their undersides. The men hooked the nets to lines to cover as much of the mouth as possible. They were then raised up out of the water and bundled up, weights hanging just at the edge of the surface to deploy. We moved the sea hunters nearby, then stopped. "Fort Grayson, this is the North Carolina Park Service. I am Ranger Greg Earhart, assisted by members of the Wake County Sheriff's Office Marine Unit. You are currently trespassing in a restricted waterway." Greg spoke calmly and evenly through the loudspeaker on the sea hunter. Hoyt turned to us, his face displaying mild annoyance. The cameras continued to film him. "Ahoy! I'm Hoyt. This is my team In Search of Monsters. Now that we are done with pleasantries, you can kindly fuck off now. I have a monster to catch." He turned. He looked back at Greg and gave a curt "thank you." He then went back to the camera. Greg's face showed more than mild annoyance. The vein in his forehead started to bulge. "All right, we tried nice. Deputy, bring us alongside him, please. Someone needs to go to jail." I glanced at the furthest boat, which was hovering near the far wall of the cove. It was a spot just above the cave. A crewman threw an object over the side, then another. A soft thump echoed from somewhere below. Then the water seemed to vibrate slightly. The deputies glanced around at each other in confusion. "Hoyt, what the hell are you doing?" Greg demanded an answer as he tossed a line to a concerned crew member. "Just a little firecracker in the water to wake Sleeping Beauty up. This is going to be my highest rated episode ever." The radio on the Sea Hunter burst to life. "Sonar contact, cove side. Depth is 75 feet. Distance 100 feet out from our position and rising. Sir, I think it knows we are here." The ISOM crew member tied the rope to connect the 2 boats. After a minute of silence, Greg picked up the microphone to radio the other Sea Hunter. "Give us an update, please." "Speed is 2 knots. It's closing in on us slowly," the deputy said. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I pictured the beast sizing us up from below. I could imagine those 4 menacing orange eyes boring into mine. Fight or flight response kicked in and my legs felt jittery. Would it attack us instead of trying to escape? There were 6 boats in total here. It couldn't possibly try to challenge all of us. Could it? Lights on board the boats activated, and cameras and boom mics were put into position with the assistance of the last rays of daylight. 75 out and closing. It's rising. Again as well, sir. 55. Not 45 feet. Still closing, sir. There was a painfully long silence. It couldn't have been more than a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. It's 40 feet off the front of ISOM 1, sir. Depth is 15 feet. Still rising. Let's stop, sir. Depth is 9 feet. Distance, 25 feet from ISOM 1. The group held a collective breath, but nothing happened. The beast did not surface, save for the powerful floodlights. Come on, you bastard, Greg swore softly as he gripped the shotgun. Kill the lights, I said suddenly. It's a marine predator that lives in the dark. It hunts primarily at night. The lights are keeping it down. Greg hoisted the radio to his mouth. Shut down the spotlights. Burn the scene lights. All of the lights off. A moment. Then the ISOM boats shut down all their lights. The crew of the Sea Hunters activated their scene lights, bathing the area in soft LED white and casting an eerie glow on the surface. The lights illuminated only a fraction of the dark water which surrounded us. It's rising, sir. 5 feet to breach. Ripples appeared on the surface of the water. The crew cheered as a dark elongated object pierced the inky depths. One pair of orange glowing eyes opened, followed by another. They reflected the scene lights and gave the beast an otherworldly appearance. It surveyed the boats, unsure of what to make of the array of challengers before it. Drop the nets, Hoist whispered to his helmsman. Start closing from the left and we can nab it. There was a sharp metallic click as clamps holding the nets in place released their hold, sending the weighted lines dropping just behind the blockade. Shit, we lost visual. Sonar, do you have it? A deputy asked over the radio. I looked back and it was gone. It left no sign that it had ever even been there. It reminded me of when a crocodile retreated underwater. I stared into the deep and could see it approach like a submarine, 4 glowing orbs penetrating the darkness above it. It accelerated forward and the orange glow went out. A sudden crash rocked ISOM 1 as the crew were thrown sideways. There was a screeching of metal and the hull gave way. Hood's eyes widened and he realized his boat was sinking rapidly. The impact knocked ISOM 1 away from us and pulled the tie line taut. A deputy hit the line with an axe, and we began to drift away. We scrambled to restart the engines of the Sea Hunter to get underway. A scream brought everyone's movement to a halt. I turned to my right and saw the beast had jumped clear out of the water and landed on the deck of ISOM 4, which had been dropping depth charges on its home. The weight of the beast caused the ISOM to lean, and it mercilessly mauled a crew member, ripping his right arm off at the elbow in one bite, before smacking him off the side of the boat with its powerful tail fin. It then lashed out, snapping another crewman up in his mouth. It slammed him against the soft-top roof over the center console, and it caved in. He shattered the windscreen and gouts of red sprayed across the pure white decking. The man let out a scream and was tossed into the lake. A third crewman grabbed a magnesium flare and lit it, casting a bright crimson hue over the scene. The creature appeared to be momentarily blinded and recoiled from the brilliant flame. It closed its eyes and blindly dove back into the water, smashing the Honda engine off the back of the boat. Gas began to pour from severed lines onto the deck. The sudden shift in weight caused the ISOM to rise suddenly, and the crew member stumbled and fell over. A brilliant orange fireball erupted from the deck of ISOM 4 as the entire boat exploded. Screams pierced the quiet as a man began to drown in the water, his arms and head on fire. He suddenly jerked to the left and was dragged rapidly towards the next ISOM boat by an unseen force from below the surface. He continued to scream until he smacked against the hull of ISOM 3 and was pulled underwater. Debris had begun to rain down from the disintegrated ISOM, and the surface of Blackwater Cove was ablaze from motor oil and fuel. A large piece of deck from ISOM-1 landed against the rail of the Sea Hunter, tiny flames burning at the end like a torch. Hoyt's crew continued to film as we moved the second Sea Hunter in to look for survivors. Aboard ISOM-2, the crew was trying to salvage the net for another attempt at capturing the beast. ISOM-1, fatally wounded and drifting, lazily floated out of the cove, losing his battle with gravity as it took on more and more water. The soft canopy over the cockpit was on fire, and embers floated off to meet the stars against the dark backdrop of Falls Lake. ISOM-2 and 3 remained afloat, with Hoyt finding safety as the crew transferred to ISOM-2. He practically bellowed into the microphone, trying to describe what had happened for future viewers. The inferno continued to burn on the surface, and I could just make out the long, webbed dorsal fin and bony spines on the back of the beast as it accelerated towards Hoyt's position. It rammed the ISOM at the bow. Already dangerously close to the western wall of the cove, it made impact with the limestone, and the grating sound of rock against metal reverberated across the water. ISOM-3 abandoned its net and fired up its engines. It turned and made its way out of Blackwater Cove with all haste. Hoyt, his boom mic operator, and his cameraman climbed off ISOM-2 as it began to list to port. They found purchase on the sheer stone of the western edge of the cove and slowly made their way to safety. The beast broke the surface, streaking towards the stricken vessel in an up and down motion as it gained speed. I watched as it elevated out of the water with amazing power and speed. It bit down on the left leg of Hoyt Grayson as he tried to scale the side of the cove and snatched him into its mouth. The cameraman steadied himself and found solid footing, then focused the camera as the beast pulled him underwater. A few bubbles broke the surface, then Hoyt's head rose above it. His eyes were filled with terror as he continued to rise out of the water. Thick, frothy blood was falling from his open mouth in chunks. The beast had now latched onto him around the waist and hoisted him skyward. His mangled left leg spewed blood, and his femur stuck through the skin. The needle-like teeth had punctured his chest cavity and skewered his lungs. The beast shook him from side to side, and the inner mouth bit down on his spine, nearly ripping it from his back. The crunch as the ribcage collapsed was like a gunshot. The beast fell backwards, and Hoyt disappeared. "We need to move," the deputy driving the Sea Hunter said. The Sea Hunter's engine began to hum as the deputy turned us broadside against the wall of the cove. We made our way to the camera crew and assisted the lighting man and boom mic operator aboard. The cameraman tried to hand the deputy his camera and cited the importance of the footage. A cacophony of screams caused the cameraman to drop the camera. It cracked open against the limestone wall and fell into the lake. I saw that ISOM-3 had nearly escaped the cove. It was rocking back and forth, but it was too dark at that distance to see what was happening. One by one, the screams died out until silence once more filled the night. The only sound I could hear was the burning of the oil on the lake. The ISOM continued silently into the darkness as a huge splash disturbed the water near it. "Get us the hell out of here," Greg bellowed into the radio. The Sea Hunter turned and accelerated to the mouth of the cove. The other Sea Hunter joined us and we powered towards the lake. The beast lashed out from the water and ran headlong into the side of the boat near the engine. The force of the impact bent the side railing in nearly 2 feet. It shook its head and sank back into the dark water as everyone stumbled to find footing. The engine sputtered as we lost speed immediately. We watched as the second Sea Hunter sped forward to loop back around. "Sea Hunter 2, we're losing power. We need you to take on all crew and continue to evacuate the area," the deputy at the helm said. Another impact rocked the Sea Hunter as the beast rammed us again. It jumped out of the water and landed with a wet, repulsive splat on the deck, its oily skin reflecting the glowing flame around us It extended his serpentine body up, rising 9 feet above the deck and looking down upon us. His massive tail fin backhanded the engine of the Sea Hunter, and it bent in the frame, rendering the boat powerless. Greg leveled his shotgun, but the beast's cold body slammed him against the side of the boat. The shotgun fell overboard into the cove. The 4 glowing eyes locked on me. The jawline flexed and the pink gums became visible. I snatched up the 4-foot piece of decking lying against the rail. The fire had burned out, but it was my only protection. It struck me so fast I could barely react. I involuntarily snapped my eyes shut and raised a piece of deck like a shield. Searing pain ripped through my right arm and I was thrown backward into the windshield of the Sea Hunter. I gasped as air was forced out of my lungs by the impact. The deck plank had blocked most of the teeth, forcing the beast's mouth open and not allowing it to clamp down on my body. It was barely a foot away from my face. I stared right down its open mouth into its throat. The massive jaws gaped open were stopped from crushing me by the decking. It was wedged in the mouth of the beast and had stabbed its lower jaw in the soft tissues. The fangs wrapped around the board, and my right forearm was pierced by 7 of them. They penetrated on the outside of my forearm and went straight through the other side. I could feel them press against my radius. I wanted to scream in pain, but could not get enough breath in me to do so. The beast had me pinned against the smashed windscreen. A vast spiderweb of cracks formed as the glass gave way to the pressure being applied. My entire right arm went numb, and I could see an irregular lump jutting through my shirt, where my collarbone should have been. I felt sick to my stomach as the stench of the beast's gullet wafted out and burned my nostrils with the odor. My tunnel vision broke as the deputy came from seemingly out of nowhere and slammed an axe down on the side of the beast's head. He struck it again and again. The fangs buried into my arm snapped, and I was suddenly free of his grasp. Greg opened fire with his sidearm, emptying the magazine into the right flank of the beast. It forced air from his gills, causing them to flutter and create the sound of a menacing hiss. Its mouth now free of the board, it turned towards its latest attacker as Greg loaded and fired again, aiming this time for the head. Rounds struck the skull of the beast, but it didn't seem to cause fatal injury. Greg was out of ammunition, but the other Sea Hunter was swiftly approaching. 2 deputies on board readied Remington 870 shotguns and took aim. Blood was pouring in a steady stream from my forearm, and I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. The beast cast his gaze upon me, orange eyes mirroring the flames around us. Blood oozed from the brutal cut on the right side of its head and another near its gills. The left side of its mouth was split open, where the axe had struck it in the jaw. Several bullet holes were visible along the side of its body. A shotgun blast rang out, and I collapsed to the deck of the Sea Hunter. As the world around me faded to black, I saw the massive tail fin flutter off the deck over the side railing. I vaguely remember hearing a splash before I was swallowed by darkness. "Can't make it up," a voice said matter-of-factly. I opened my eyes for the first time in 2 days. A massive headache immediately welcomed me to reality. A numbness had settled over my entire body, but I could feel a dull ache in my arm and chest. I glanced over to see Greg sitting in the chair next to my bed, reading the news and Observer. "Your parents just left to get lunch. I told them I would sit with you in case you woke up." What happened? Why am I in so much pain?" I weakly asked. 4 broken ribs, broken forearm, broken clavicle, dislocated right shoulder, and some nasty puncture wounds. Should make for some cool scars. Also, You are the only person I know that can break and dislocate the shoulder at the same time. Just pick one." "The beast?" Greg paused. "We don't know. It was wounded when it decided to make a run for it, but I don't know if it was enough to kill it. The lake has been closed until further notice to all visitors. Effective immediately. Campgrounds, boat launches, hiking trails, all of it." I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of narcotic-induced nausea sweep over me. It's still out there." "Afraid so. A lot of people are dead. Some folks high up the food chain want to turn it into a publicity stunt, our own Loch Ness monster, but others just want to cover it up and be done with it. There's a plan for that, for better or worse. Someone very high up doesn't want the public to know about this." Greg sighed deeply and leaned back in his chair. A small container was on the table on the left side of my bed, and realized it was a plastic jar containing the 17th pulled out from my arm, each over 6 inches long. I glanced up at the television through the mental haze. I used the tiny white controller next to my left hand to turn the volume up to an audible level. A nurse walked in to check and record my vitals. A young woman spoke into the camera from the local CBS 17 news desk. "Meanwhile, Mark Calloway, president of Duke Energy, touted the decision to close Falls Lake to all visitors effective immediately as a necessary act. We have been told by a government official speaking on condition of anonymity that Falls Lake will continue to operate under the Department of Natural Resources as a quarantine zone until further notice. Scientists from several prominent watchdog groups have petitioned to establish research sites near the lake. The 50,000 metric tons of coal ash dumped into the drinking water of 2.5 million people is already being called the worst natural disaster in the company's history. The decision comes just days after authorities confirmed toxic gases from the accident killed all 17 crew members of a documentary program filming around the lake." If you're able to make it this far, then thank you. If you wish to support the channel, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, of course. Also, hit the bell icon if you want any notifications as to when the next video is coming out. If you want to go a step further and support us, there's a link to the Patreon at the very bottom of this video, along with links to the author's original story and other information if you're curious to find. And as always, all are welcome in the hand of horror. Even you.